so much for being here today. My name is Cora Barnes. I'm the Senior Program and Development Associate at World Arts West. World Arts West Performing Arts Cohort began over a year ago. World Arts West received a Performing Arts Readiness Network grant from Lyrasis, which allowed us to convene an in-person gathering and to talk about our various experiences in archiving, conduct site visits for emergency preparedness, and now present this Zoom series. One of the things we emphasize in our reporting to our funder is that our cultural dance community preparedness means the capacity to be prepared every day. It means the ability to maintain fully resourced organizations ready for success and not just disaster. So when you look around for resources for archiving, a lot of funders are focused on large institutions like libraries, museums, and universities, but cultural dance organizations like ours and like yours have important differences in how we need to store and share our materials and what preparedness means to us, including the need to preserve and share wisdom that is traditionally passed orally, to tell our own stories, which have been appropriated or omitted from the historical record, to prevent further harmful experiences, including loss of ownership, access, and financial benefit from our archival material, and to keep attire, instruments, and sacred objects available for use. So for that reason and to that end, we're presenting this series of educational and listening sessions about archiving for culturally rooted performing arts organizations. And this is the fourth presentation we've done in our series. And actually, thanks to the flexibility of our funder, it looks like we're going to be able to have at least one more presentation, possibly two. So stay tuned for that. So on to our speakers. Today we have two speakers, Dr. Martina Ayala from Mission Cultural Center of the Latino Arts and Camille Lawrence, who is the project archivist for Urban Bushwomen in New York City and founder of Black Beauty Archive. And they are joining us to talk about their experiences with strategizing for culturally rooted performing arts organizations, including fundraising, planning, and making progress toward healthy and sustainable archives. I've asked Dr. Ayala to share Mission Cultural Center's journey to preserve and fundraise for Mission Cultural Center and the challenges and successes they've encountered along the way. And Camille Lawrence will talk to us and share resources for her archiving strategies with Urban Bushwomen, Black Beauty Archives, and bringing digitized materials to a public audience. So super happy and excited and honored to have these two wonderful people with us here today. So we are going to start with Dr. Martina Ayala. Dr. Ayala, would you like to just introduce yourself first, and then we can begin our conversation?
Sure. My name is Martina Ayala, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mission Cultural Center for Latino Arts, located in the Mission District in San Francisco. I have been the director now for a little over 3 years.
Thank you so much. And I had the privilege to visit Dr. Ayala at Mission Cultural Center and see the amazing work they do there, the amazing spaces they have, and to see in person, what they're trying to do with their archive. So I think, Dr. Ayala, I'll ask you first, like, if you could just talk to us about sort of what you've had to face and overcome as far as getting your archive together, sort of how and why archiving became, a very essential part of your work, and then maybe next about sort of the fundraising that you did for it.
Okay, well, the archive became a central and a major figure in our journey, particularly my journey as a new director coming in 3 years ago. Before, on the first day of the job, I was informed that I had less than 6 months to pack up and move and relocate. We operate out of a city-owned building that we get for $1 a year in kind. Of course, we are responsible for maintaining this building, which is 37,500 square feet. It's a very large building. It's an old building that constantly breaks down. And so a lot of funding that would normally go to programming goes to maintaining and upkeep of this building. When I was told that I needed to not only relocate, but raise the money to, find another place to go, pay market rate rent, and I had less than 6 months to do it, you could imagine, what came over me. Here I am, a new director, transitioning from a director that had been here for 27 years, and I was not aware that this was going to happen when I accepted the job. So there was really no time to really think about it. I just had to go into action. So after assessing everything that was in the building, what we recognized that was the most important, most valuable asset that we needed to protect was the archives. We hold a collection of over 10,000 archival prints that documents the history of a community and of a people, not only in the Bay Area, but in Latin America. We have one of the most, we have a historical print shop that has printed posters for many of the dance performances, all of the performances in the Bay Area, the political movements, all of the historical movements that have taken place in the Bay Area and beyond. This is also the place where leaders from Latin America, from Palestine, from Africa have come to print their posters. So we have this huge collection of over 10,000 posters that have yet to be documented, archived, and stored properly. So when I came, they were kind of in a moldy closet in bags in a room that was leaking. So one, the priority was to find a space to preserve that important archive, to find proper storage. And we not only hold 10,000 posters, we have thousands of photos, video and audio recordings of theater and dance performances that have taken place at this location for the past 49 years. And we also hold artifacts, such as, Carlos Santana's first guitar, Rigoberta Menchu's, loom. We have tons of artifacts. And we had very little time or money to do the proper archiving. We received our first, there were two things that I started to do. The first thing was, of course, advocating for the preservation and making it known that this was the most valuable asset that we have, that although we're a multidisciplinary arts organization, this is the most important asset because it documents our people's history. And if we lose a primary source of information, then our people lose access to that history for the books that have yet to be written and documented about our community. So that being said, there were two sources of funding that came into play immediately. One was, we were very lucky to have received a grant from the Haas Foundation, the Walter and Elise Haas Fund. And that is really the fund that supported us in obtaining the proper storage. With that funding, we were able to move the move the archives from the moldy room to waterproof and fireproof file cabinets that were used to properly store the materials. And that helped us begin the process of archiving. I also advocated with the city for relocation add back money. And of the two grants that we received, one grant was dedicated specifically to help us address the challenge of relocating the archive. We may not have enough money to rent a market rate building to house our organization, but we were able to successfully identify a location where we could have temperature controlled storage and access for our archive. So we were able to secure that. It's kind of like, when you're in a fire or, when you're in a crisis, what do you save first? What is your priority? And for me, it was, the archive was a no-brainer. That's the number one if I had to save one thing in this building, that's the one thing that I would save, because that is our treasure.
Yes.
So those were the two main sources of funding. Eventually, we've been able to partner. I mean, we had to do what we had to do to make this done. We were going to archive by any means necessary. We did not have the funding to hire a professional archivist. So what I did is I started off with hiring a consultant that would come in and train my staff and volunteers. And most of the archiving was done under the direction of a consultant who came for a very short period and trained our staff and teens. The archive was, the people who have been archiving are high school interns that were given to us by the MAIP, the Mayor's Youth Program, and BACR. We also partnered with universities like USF and San Francisco State University, and we used all of the volunteers at hand to come in and archive. We now have professional volunteer archivist that comes in twice a week, along with museum studies and archivist students, graduate students that volunteer their time to archive weekly. It's an ongoing process, and it's a process that's gone in stages. The relocation date has been a moving target for the past 3 years. The city has changed the date 4 times. We're still here 3 years later. We were supposed to move this month, but that date has been moved once again to July 2026, which gives us a little bit more time to continue to archive and pack so that we could move the archive. What I've decided to do is to take, between now and September, we are hoping to pack the materials in such a way that they're going to be able to be properly moved without damage. And we're going to move out early before the city date, because they keep changing the date and we just need to move forward. We have a grant and we don't want to lose the money and give it back. So we're going to move the archive out of the current storage to the final storage place, which would be the Minnesota Art Project. They have the proper storage. The grant that we did get for relocation will be paying for that rental storage. And we will be working on our archives continuously, at least 2 times per week. That's all we could afford at this time. But the work will continue wherever we're at. So that's one thing. I mean, and as you all know, it's hard to raise money for preservation of an archive when you have the challenges of operations. I mean, we still have to raise money for operations. And in our case, we have to raise money for relocation, operations, and capital campaign, which is very challenging when you don't have the proper infrastructure or support of staff or even a board that could support you in that task. Federal funding for me was always out of the question. Even though there was NEA grants, I already knew, given the political climate, that we were moving in a direction that wasn't going to be supportive. So I did not bother to apply for the many NEA grants that were out there for archiving. I just didn't apply.
Wow.
And yeah.
So what was your approach when you realized that you needed to raise money to preserve your archive? Were you looking specifically for grants? It sounds like you also reached out to the city. How were you strategizing sort of to approach different people who could possibly support your archive?
So the first thing, in terms of fundraising, it's the low-hanging fruit. I went for whatever was readily available, one, because I didn't have time or staff to help me apply for grants. I mean, it was a real challenge. And we didn't have, we were moving. We're constantly being told you have to leave in 6 months. So you don't have much time. Um, I used a very grassroots approach, which was asking people for support and help and training whomever was available and cared for this project. So the little funding that I had, I invested in professional archivists to train our volunteers. So it's been a labor of love. And we also were able to do something in this process. Not only were we able to manage to keep the archival project moving forward, but we also introduced the youth, the high school youth, to this very important task and work as, of preserving history.
Yeah, I love that you sort of made it an intergenerational and community-wide effort to support your archive. I'm wondering, like, when you reached out to funders like Haas or to the city, did they did they seem to sort of acknowledge and accept and understand the critical nature of preserving your archive, like sort of the wealth of history that your organization is sitting on? I really want people who are listening to understand that their archive is also their treasure. A lot of us have things, spread out in offices, in storage, and not even time to address it. But sometimes that is maybe our most valuable asset for our organization. So I'm wondering how that played out when you were trying to fund.
It's very important for the leader of the organization to champion the cause.
Yes.
If you don't value your collection and you are unaware of the treasure that you hold, no one else will give it that importance.
Yeah.
So for me, um, it was like a sole focus. I have to let people know the importance, first of all, one, that we have this collection, two, the importance of preservation, and the fact that this is the treasure of the organization. We have many, many contributions. We have lots of things that we're proud of, but this is the most important treasure that we hold. And therefore, it takes a village, it takes all of us to make that effort. When I came in, Bancroft Library was already in the process of purchasing part of the collection. And I have to give a warning to all of you out there who are thinking of selling your collection to universities. It is really, really important that you understand the value of what you hold.
Absolutely.
In the past, our organization had sold the collection to UC Santa Barbara. And unfortunately, because we weren't aware of how these things operate, if we want to, they took basically the best of our collection, including our onesies. And if, when the previous director wanted to borrow a poster for exhibit, they deemed us unqualified or incapable of handling our own collection. And given that history, I had to be very mindful and alert about what was happening when I came in, when Bancroft wanted to purchase it. And I found that a similar pattern was taking place. So I stopped it. Yes, we need money. Yes, we desperately need money, but this is not how we're going to resolve our financial issues. Because if you sell your treasure for nothing, you are impacting generations of artists. You are impacting the quality. We have not had enough funding to properly appraise our artwork. And the artwork that was once considered trash or revolutionary or unimportant holds great importance now. And we are stewards of this treasure. It's very important that you hold off. If you don't know, pause, but don't just give it away for nothing.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ayala. I hope, everybody who's watching this now and later will understand and take heed to what Dr. Ayala is saying. We're presenting this series so you can hear real life stories of our community members, so you can pause and reach out to somebody in your community first before you make a big step with your archive. Because as Dr. Ayala has said, in most cases, our archives are some of our biggest treasures and our most valuable assets. And we need to be in community to understand, sort of how to move forward. And we're trying to create a space where we can connect with each other so we can support each other on our journeys and get these pieces of advice, these warnings, these tips for success. So I could talk to you all day, Dr. Ayala. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to move on to Camille so she can present the information that she has for us, but we'll have some time at the end where we can bring in audience members with questions. And if there are no questions, I have plenty of questions. So I'd like Camille, if you would introduce yourself, and then we can get started. Thanks.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, World Arts West, for holding this really important conversation. Before I go into my thing, I just wanted to say, Dr. Ayala, I really just want to lift you up and celebrate you for all the work that you've done, being an advocate and a good steward of the collection. I really want to echo, and you all will hear a lot of the same things coming from me in navigating this archive space with integrity and honoring that. And we need people like Dr. Ayala and myself and Cora and folks at World Arts West to really be intentional about understanding the value of these collections, knowing that they're historical histories that may not have been documented well in other spaces, but very much so beware of extractive practices from folks outside of your community, and do the work. As she said, if you do not know, pause so that you can have intentional conversations about how do you want to engage with your collection, how do you want to activate community support. And so I just wanted to lift you up because you are doing it and doing it well. So hi, everyone. My name is Camille Lawrence. I'm an archivist, a web archivist, and a memory worker. I'm also the founder of Black Beauty Archive. I come from a background of being a beauty practitioner for 15 years, and I transitioned and fell into archives by accident. I started at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and what was interesting to me immediately was that there were so many similarities between beauty practices and dance, in the sense of when they're both presented, they are ephemeral forms of artwork, right? And how do we take approaches to preserve those stories, tell them, and share them? And so I'm just going to walk through a brief deck that I put together, also dropping information in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me if you ever have questions about your collection. I'm also in the process of starting my appraiser certificate because as an archivist, and as Dr. Ayala has said, so many of us have collections, but then what is next? And as we know, less than 5% of archivists identify as Black in the United States. So you can imagine the amount of folks who are Black, Indigenous, and other amazing people of color across the globe in appraisers are not reflective of us. And so it's important that we are able to connect with folks who understand our cultural heritage to appraise these items for their intentioned value and their intentioned use. And the appraisal part is important because the insurance going behind that can help affirm the value and protect you in conversations with people who could potentially extract. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I will walk through this deck. Let me see. Okay, awesome. So, as I mentioned, my name is Camille. I'm an archivist and memory worker from New York City. I'm in the process of completing my master's in library science, and I'm also completing my appraiser certificate. I'm active in a lot of membership groups. I keep my ears to the streets to know how to best support community and grassroots movements. I want to really lift up all the amazing young folks who have helped us process this collection at Urban Bush Women. And similar to Dr. Ayala, we put out our feelers and connected with students in community, local universities. And I really targeted students who were active dancers because I believe deeply who is better to describe the community than the community themselves. Instead of leading into traditional colonial archival practices where you're in an ivory tower in silos and documenting people, it doesn't make sense. And as a Black woman, that never made sense to me. So I always think it's important to show that this is a communal practice. It is an ongoing practice, and it takes a lot of labors of love and commitment from community to make it happen. We had multiple phases of processing the Urban Bushwomen Archive. For those of you who are not familiar, Urban Bushwomen was founded in 1984 by Jawole Zalar, and there has been a systemic erasure of the documentation of Black art practices in the Americas. And luckily, our collection has been really pristine and held together for 40 plus years before I came in 2021. So phase one in 2021, we assessed the collection. I developed spreadsheets on Google for free to figure out how to document where all of these things lived, and I researched best practices. Phase two is when we brought in a ton of interns. I was able to advocate and do a lot of pitch meetings to the board to have them expand our budget so that we can have a processing space that was outside of our small 600 square foot office. And now in phase three, which is 2023 and beyond, now that we have materials that are digitized, we need communities' help to identify them and to add more historical context. For those of you who have not visited our office in Brooklyn, I think it's important to show that this 600 square foot space was not enough for us. And these little green circles was what I showed the board and saying, I can't do this here. I need more space. Please open up the budget so we can do so. Luckily, they agreed. And I also had to educate some folks in the dance community about what a traditional archival environment looks like and why we needed to relocate because of temperature, humidity control, larger workspaces, etc. For those of you who are familiar, you know New York City and tons of cities across the US are very old historical buildings. They don't have updated HVAC systems. They're ridden with rodents. And so similar to you, Dr. Ayala, we too had a leaky closet with just tons of mess. And we had to recover that quickly. And so just to show you a glimpse of some of the materials, I wanted to be able to help artists and dancers identify what is deemed at risk, what's the quality of good, opposed to what is the quality of excellent. And a significant amount of our collection on the left was at risk. We had a lot of one-of-one pieces. And so imagery like this was really helpful to communicate to leadership to advocate for more resources. This is everything packed up in the office before. I cleared it out afterwards. And here's a kind of preview of what we have in the actual collection. So in print materials, we have programs, newspaper clippings, curriculum guides, sheet music, choreographic notes, programs, etc. Audio and visual materials are probably the largest part of our collection. And what is highlighted are materials that I found towards the end of my contract, which I'm currently in now, which the original archivist who came and did the appraisal didn't walk back enough into the storage unit to see that there were these extra master tapes. And so now we're focused on fundraising initiatives to digitize beta tapes because the cost continues to increase because these technologies aren't readily available to digitize them. And I think the going average for beta tapes now is about $120 for 30 minutes. Most of our beta tapes have 4 hours and we have over 125. So you do the math. We have to fundraise more. But this is just some of the materials that exist in the archive. This is before. We're all dealing with leaky closets, scary, scary sights. And the team of interns and myself were able to transport the materials with a moving company into the Brooklyn Navy Yard. We laid out all of the materials, and some of them had concepts of original order, whereas the folks who came before us had an intention of how they organized things. And so we try to so honor that with color codes in the ways that we rehouse materials. So for example, as you see on the left, the programs and playbills were stored in these oxidized, molded plastic binders. We rehoused them into these temporary banker's boxes and just had them digitized. We also had to rehouse these posters in the leaky closets. We digitized them and stored them in oversized boxes, which is super accessible for artists to do. We took all of the photographs that were loose and in bad conditions, and we put them into photo albums. Urban Bushwomen, when we are together, we are in the bush, and there's a lot of intimate familial feelings. And so since they loved albums that they could flip through, and we have a couch in the office, I wanted to still keep them in albums. So I do think, again, if you're stepping into an existing group or an existing dance company, try your best to honor the original order because that's how, folks feel safe in viewing their information. One really cool thing that I found that I love to share is that we had for those of you who are familiar of Black Baptist and Black Pentecostal traditions in the church, the fan is essential, but it is also a performance element. And so Urban Bush Women had toured Praise House in the South for a few years. And what was really unique is that in every city that they performed at, they tapped into local church choirs to help add to the actual performance. And so for me, thinking about grassroots, Urban Bush Women has always been intentional about that. And on the right are all of the beta tapes that we found in year 3. So we moved the materials into the UVO storage facility. We have them labeled numbers into series and sub-series. And after breaking down those budgets, I was able to add $1,200 back to the budget. I was able to consolidate information and recover posters and tapes. So I'm sure you're like, well, where does it live, Camille? It lives at Wuvo Storage Facility. Luckily, in New York City, we have museum quality grade storage. So it was actually much cheaper than the traditional storage units over here. And we have a concierge, we have an inventory management. I can do a climate check at any point. And if I want to bring materials on site, it's an easy drop off. And on this bottom left picture, I can rent time for viewing rooms to hold conversations with our team and to also go through materials. So I'm super grateful that UVO exists over here. But for those of you who don't have a UVO, you can absolutely do a regular storage unit. Just be intentional about what their climate procedures are, their disaster relief plans if you live in flooding areas, and whatever you choose to put in storage units, please have them elevated on metal racks that can roll, not flat on the floor. And what happened in September 2022, we were thankfully awarded the Saving America's Treasures grant. $200,000 sounds like a lot, but when you break down where the budget goes, it's not very much. So that broke down into archival supplies, but the biggest cost was digitization fees. And now where we are in 2024 and beyond, we are continuing to digitize our beta tapes. We are developing strategies about inclusive metadata. We know that existing structures that were created by white librarians or white institutions don't serve the best ways to describe our practices as Black folks in the diaspora. So we're working on inclusive metadata, and we are thinking about what does public access look like. Now, I'm sure, as we all know, a lot of us have been impacted by the current administration and the slashing of grants and the dismantling of funding. So as Dr. Ayala said, I ain't even checking for these federal grants because community knows how to come together and get it done. And so we are at the end of our grant, but we are in conversation to bring in community artists, collaborators of Urban Bush Women to help us digitize photographs and to identify them. There's something really powerful about sitting together and going through memories and sharing stories and also identifying and teaching community this skill set so that people feel empowered about the value of their collections and what they've contributed to the artist landscape. We're also focusing on updating production timelines because at Urban Bush Women, a lot of our performances have developed into new performances that have become restaged, so they build upon one another. And for me, I want to see the faces who made this art real. I'm trying to work on a company spreadsheet like list so I can see all the faces and names of individuals who have danced with us here at Urban Bush Women. And the last thing, because I love technology, I started web archiving the digital presence of Urban Bush Women because we have websites and digital collections and social media. And similar to dance being ephemeral, so are digital tools and websites. And so because all of those are really time sensitive and fragile, I wanted to make sure that we have web archive collections to also provide context to the physical collections that we have. So I'm just gonna exit out of this and I'm gonna pause because I said a lot and kind of try to move quickly through that.
No, thank you so much, Camille. I so appreciate it. And I think everyone now understands why I invited both of these amazing women to present to us today. I think a lot of us in the sort of culturally rooted performing arts communities are not only trying to figure out how do I organize my archive, how do I preserve it, how do I share it. So we're all navigating these issues of, you know, organizing it, finding a safe space for it, and then how do I digitize it? How do I share it? What platform? So I want our audience to know that there are lots of people out here working on this. Camille is working on this. Dr. Ayala is working on this. World Arts West is working on this. We are all trying to figure out the best ways to do that. And that's why I want us to be in community. I want us to have spaces where we can talk about this together so we don't have to, double up the work, so we can share information that we have with each other, share our different expertise and experiences with each other. So we can support each other to do the best work that we can. Camille, can I just ask you before we get to questions and answers, how did you guys go about sort of digitizing the collection? What was that like for your organization?
Absolutely. So because we have such a wide range of materials and types of formats, I focused on what was most at risk. So the original grant that I was hired on was to digitize VHS tapes. So I kind of pushed to expand beyond that. So thankfully they were open to it. The first thing that is very difficult is finding a reliable digitization partner, right? Don't just go by the website. Don't go by who their previous clients were. Reach out, send an email, tell them the scope of what you need digitized, ask for rates up front, ask for timelines up front. And if you are going to work with a third-party digitizer, I highly encourage you to have internal spreadsheets, and you duplicate that and you make a copy and you share it with their team and ask for them to update and check off what was done. Because what I will say is one of our digitizing partners unfortunately messed up 20 tapes and put them in the wrong packages with the wrong labels. And it took me a while to watch them back. Thank goodness they were all in good condition to rewatch them. But if they were fragile and damaged, that would be terrible. So be intentional about your digitizing partner and ask for all fees up front and a projected timeline. That's for audio and visual materials. Now, also be mindful if you're in a small town, you may not have digitizing partners nearby. There sometimes are smaller cohorts or collectives, even at photo and print spaces, and even some gallery and frame shops do work with third-party partners that help digitize audio and visual materials. The second thing I'll say is when it comes to print materials, if you need access immediately, you can't think about high-level preservation standards and a $4,000 flatbed scanner. Most of us have iPhones and tablets. You can absolutely open the Notes app, use the document scanner to scan a PDF for free if you need to just send it for research and access. Whereas if you need it for preservation quality, there are flatbed scanners that are affordable that you can purchase. But with that, you should also buy external hard drives. Now, external hard drives, digital file formats, like I said, are unsustainable. And so what worked in 2021 is now a smaller external hard drive here. So we can't read floppy disks in 2025 as easily. So connecting and joining free webinars about digital preservation is essential. What digital archivists can do is not the same thing as what folks who are digital preservation experts can do. And so outside of backing up on external hard drives like this, you should also subscribe to Dropbox. See if you can come together with a cohort of like-minded dance organizations. Apply for Amazon Glacier Cloud because you need to back it up in multiple places. If one server crashes, you still have your digital files somewhere else. And you want to ensure whoever's your cloud provider to have some system of checksums to ensure there's no data rot on the digital files. Because what you could watch on a floppy disk in 1994, it probably has data rot where we cannot retrieve it now. So be intentional and think about that. And when it comes to posters and oversized 3D objects, costumes, things like that, connect with local community artists, photographers, or people who already love your dance company and your initiatives and who have high quality cameras. Have them photograph them laid out. If you have a mannequin, put them on a mannequin. And if you have oversized posters, I would say the same thing. Have them photographed. But I'm more than sure that you have people in community that you may not be thinking about who have this skill set who can assist. And then the thing that I try to navigate around is if we have volunteers and we can't compensate them, then at least affirm their name as contributors to the project to add more visibility to their skill set, so that it also, shines a light back on them. But I just want to affirm, like, dancers don't have to stay in silos. And even though this is Urban Bushwomen is a big dance company for 40 years of history, you can still adopt these same practices if you are a solo choreographer, if you have a smaller dance troupe, even if you're working with teens and other forms of performance. I just want to shout out some free tools. Google Drive is free. Google Sheets is free. Dropbox, you can do trials. Airtable. I love Airtable. Airtable is a great platform that's really affordable, less than $500 a year, where you can build out like interactive, relational databases where the objects are connected to each other, whereas other expensive databases are hierarchical, where it's just a list. Now we all have made mistakes. We all have unfortunate partners who didn't do what we wanted to do well at some point. And so it's just about sharing that information with community and making sure that we all stay informed and not in silos. And that's why I'm grateful for World Arts West and Cora for facilitating these spaces to affirm that building your archive is a reality and it should happen. And you have to be a good steward of your history, because even though your peers may not believe in the value or administration may not believe in the value, there are folks waiting for you to fail to extract that, to monetize it. So I'll just pause there.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you again. No, I so appreciate that. Thank you for, joining our community. If folks out there want to be a part of, the network that we're trying to create of people who are interested in archiving, who are moving forward with building their archives. Camille mentioned that, Urban Bushwomen, 40 years. Dr. Ayala, how long has Mission Cultural Center been around now?
For 49 years.
49 years, right. Okay. So we're talking about history, folks. Same World Arts West now 47 years. I think we started in 1978, and we'll have our 50th anniversary in 2028. And there are multiple organizations who are approaching 30, 40, 50 years and past that. And all of these organizations are sitting on incredible history, incredible knowledge that really needs to be preserved in the face of, as Camille mentioned, sort of intentional erasure. And so we really want to make sure that we preserve that history, that we can support each other to do that, and we can support each other to share it. So please know that there are folks working on this. Please feel free to reach out to myself at World Arts West to get involved with our network. And we'll try to keep bringing people to you who have experience around this. And we are trying to put on our new website, which is coming up, sort of a resource page around this. So anything that any of our speakers share as far as tips, resources, we'll be able to provide there. We'll try to have these videos up, or clips of these videos, so you can go back and understand sort of, what we've shared here, and sort of absorb it and take your time with it. Andrea, do we have any questions so far from folks out there? Or do any folks want to unmute themselves and ask any questions who are out here listening to us right now?
No questions in the chat so far, but folks, feel free.
Okay, feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you have a question or a comment now. We're now into that discussion part. We want to know what our community is thinking about, what's important to you, whether it's specifically about, what Dr. Ayala and Camille have talked about or not. Please let us know what your archival concerns are, what your journey has been. If you just want to make a comment, we'd really love to hear that from you. And I do want to say, Camille, I'm very encouraged and happy that you're pursuing this appraising license. One of the things that Dr. Ayala mentioned to me is that they need an appraiser, right? And we need people who are knowledgeable about cultural communities' assets to, really be able to appraise what we are, what we have in these collections, and that is another data set for us to try to get funding for our organizations. Dr. Ayala, do you want to speak to that just for a minute about that challenge of finding an appraiser and what that will help you with?
Yes, in searching for archivists, I mean, there are a few out there. There are not as many as we would like, but really having archivists who are familiar with the history of people of color and their contributions is very important. How do you appraise the cover, the cover of a lowrider? That's art. What value do you put on that? What value do you put on posters that were put all over that were pasted all over the neighborhood? People who understand that is very important. And Camille, thank you so much for going into the field of appraisal. We need to encourage more people of color who have a knowledge and background of or interest in cultural movements and the history of people of color and their contributions to the history and the arts movement is essential. And making sure that before you give away your art, before you sell it to save you whatever, that you have it properly appraised. Go slow, pause, find other alternatives, but don't give away your treasure without knowing what you have in your house.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
100%. And just to respond to you, Dr. Ayala, like one thing that I'm thinking about is why I find so many even elders who have big collections who just let them go to libraries or let them go to companies that are for profit is they're thinking about, oh, I just want people to have access and I need a little bit of money. When there's so many free platforms that we can subscribe to, like Patreon or even hosting a Zoom call, but putting it behind a paywall. I always encourage dance companies like stream something to the masses and charge almost like ticket sales like you go to a movie. Like stream it every month, have people join for like $20 and take that bucket of streaming funds to go towards either digitizations or appraisal. The other thing I will say is there are so many barriers to appraisal. First of all, the cost of an appraisal certificate is $7,000. That's number one. No scholarships available. The second thing is the systems and how you do it. It's you can take it over 6 months virtually online at a certain time, or you can do it Monday through Friday for 1 month in New York City. Who can leave their full-time job and go get that? And I had to save up to take this, right? And so I'm radical in the sense of I learned this thing, I bring it back to community, we restructure it, we remix it to best serve our communities. Because again, these colonial systems and practices of value-based whatever do not serve us. So like you said, they can't appraise the value of an image of a lowrider. They can't appraise the value of a portrait of Bantu knots. Like, and so it is up to us to get behind folks who are passionate about the work so we can get them educated. But even if it's one of us, we can go and bring that back to continue to share with others.
And make sure if you're going to sell your collection to a university library, that you're the one in control, not the university archivist. You take that collection, you say, this is what I'm willing to sell you, and make sure that you document everything before you give it away.
Absolutely.
100%.
We are trying, I think our next probably series session will be about copyright potentially and ownership of your materials. I think it's a very, very important topic for all of our community organizations to know about and to start to educate themselves about for the reasons that Dr. Ayala and that Camille have mentioned. So I hope that everyone is paying attention and that they take that seriously. We definitely are.
Licensing fees. Right now we have some of the artists that have taken the collection without permission, and they are doing travel exhibits. So museums are contacting me and saying, we have your exhibit here. And I'm like, I never gave permission. But so it's really important that we have legal counsel as well, which we don't have money right now to get, but to make sure that we have all of our documentation in place, our licensing, ownership, rights to the work and the images, that all of that is in place. We have to think of all of these things as we move forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, one of the things that we are, want to help present here in this space for community archiving. As, doing a lot of the work for the archive at World Arts West, and we actually had one of the videographers from our festival donate some Betacam tapes from way back in our festival history. And so I had to learn and understand, like, okay, so then what is that contract that we like sign that they donate to us and like a donor's gift? And I had to learn about it, I had to write a contract. And the standard is that you give away all your rights, basically, when you donate to somebody's archive or collection. And you don't have to do that. All contracts are negotiable. I want everybody to hear that loud and clear. But that's often what a museum or even an organization like ours will ask for, because that gives you the most, freedom to do whatever you want. But we were getting our own materials, so that, that's sort of a different situation. But I just, I want people to be aware of that. And I really want to thank Dr. Ayala from Mission Cultural Center of Latina Arts. I want to thank Camille Lawrence for being here today. I think you can all see the incredible journeys they're on, the incredible knowledge that they hold. So Dr. Ayala or Camille, is there anything you'd like to leave us with today?
Preserve our history.
Yes. And I'll add, it doesn't matter if you have a degree or not, you hold your culture's cultural heritage, you are a memory worker, and you can take baby steps to build the story. It's an ever-evolving process, and be intentional about the generations to follow.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, so much. I think I'll just say also, there are so many things in our collections that are sacred objects that are priceless to us, but we still need to know this information. We need to know, the value. We need to know how to preserve it. So I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us in the audience today. Stay in community with us and have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for being here. I want to say thank you.